Hello, this is Ben Television News Roundup, a compilation of major stories in the week ending. I am Tunde Alabi. Thousands of athletes from 71 countries and territories are now competing for medals at the ongoing 2014 Commonwealth Games holding in Glasgow, Scotland. The opening ceremony, which had a cast of about 2,000 people and a TV viewing audiences of about 1 billion, had a glamorous opening ceremony witnessed by the Queen, who is the head of the Commonwealth.
The baton relay represents a calling together of people from every part of the Commonwealth and serves as a reminder of our shared ideals and ambitions as a diverse, resourceful, and cohesive family. It now gives me the greatest pleasure to declare the 20th Commonwealth Games open.
The Commonwealth Games represent a gathering of people from every nation of the Commonwealth who've shared ideals and ambitions. The Games will feature 70 sports over the 11 days the tournament will last. Nigerians have again spoken of their anger, frustration and fear about another bomb blast that killed 82 people in Kaduna State, Nigeria Wednesday. The twin blast was said to have been targeted at both the opposition leader and ex-head of state, Muhammadu Buhari, and a moderate Muslim cleric in Kaduna State. One of the blasts is said to have hit one of the security vehicles of the ex-head of state, with some of its aides sustaining injuries which are not life-threatening. But the retired Nigerian general escaped unhurt. The Kaduna attacks bore the hallmarks of the dreaded Boko Haram, whose deadly campaigns in northeast Nigeria have left thousands of people dead. The remains of the 283 victims of the unfortunate flight MH17 that was shot down over the Russian-backed separatist area of Donetsk have left the crash site and been received by their respective countries. The Netherlands have received bodies of their citizens involved in the downed flight. The country lost 198 of its citizens out of the 283 on board of the fatal flight. Ben TV reviewed the incident leading to the crash and the response of the international community. The story is presented from our studios. Flight MH17 was a scheduled international passenger flight from Amsterdam to Kuala Lumpur on 17 July 2014. The passenger Boeing 777 crashed within Ukrainian territory at a rebel-controlled area. All 283 passengers and 15 crew members on board of the fatal flight were killed. According to the United States intelligence officials, the plane was shot, but the origin of the missile used is still in dispute, with all fingers pointing to Russian-made and supplied surface-to-air missile.
With respect to Ukraine, it's now been 4 days since Malaysian Airlines Flight 17 was shot down over territory controlled by Russian-backed separatists in Ukraine. Over the last several days, our hearts have been absolutely broken as we've learned more about the extraordinary and beautiful lives that were lost. Men, women, and children, and infants who were killed so suddenly and so senselessly. Our thoughts and prayers continue to be with their families around the world who are going through just unimaginable grief. I've had the opportunity to speak to a number of leaders around the world whose citizens were lost on this flight, and all of them remain in a state of shock, but frankly also in a state of outrage. Our immediate focus is on recovering those who were lost, investigating exactly what happened, and putting forward the facts. We have to make sure that the truth is out and that accountability exists. Now, international investigators are on the ground. They have been organized. I've sent teams. Other countries have sent teams. They are prepared. They are organized to conduct what should be the kinds of protocols and scouring and collecting of evidence that should follow any international incident like this. And what they need right now is immediate and full access to the crash site. They need to be able to conduct a prompt and full and unimpeded, as well as transparent, investigation. And recovery personnel have to do the solemn and sacred work of recovering the remains of those who were lost. Now, Ukrainian President Poroshenko has declared a demilitarized zone around the crash site. As I said before, you have international teams already in place prepared to conduct the investigation and recover the remains of those who have been lost. But unfortunately, the Russian-backed separatists who control the area continue to block the investigation. They've repeatedly prevented international investigators from gaining full access to the wreckage. As investigators approached, they fired their weapons into the air. These separatists are removing evidence from the crash site, all of which begs the question, what exactly are they trying to hide? Moreover, these Russian-backed separatists are removing bodies from the crash site, oftentimes without the care that we would normally expect from a tragedy like this. And this is an insult to those who've lost loved ones. This is the kind of behavior that has no place in the community of nations. Now, Russia has extraordinary influence over these separatists. No one denies that. Russia has urged them on. Russia has trained them. We know that Russia has armed them with military equipment and weapons, including anti-aircraft weapons. Key separatist leaders are Russian citizens. So, given its direct influence over the separatists, Russia, and President Putin in particular, has direct responsibility to compel them to cooperate with the investigation. That is the least that they can do. President Putin says that he supports a full and fair investigation. And I appreciate those words, but they have to be supported by actions. The burden now is on Russia to insist that the separatists stop tampering with the evidence, grant investigators who are already on the ground immediate, full, and unimpeded access to the crash site. The separatists and the Russian sponsors are responsible for the safety of the investigators doing their work. And along with our allies and partners, we will be working this issue at the United Nations today. More broadly, as I've said throughout this crisis, and the crisis in Ukraine generally, and I've said this directly to President Putin as well as publicly, my preference continues to be finding a diplomatic resolution within Ukraine. I believe that can still happen. That is my preference today, and it will continue to be my preference. But if Russia continues to violate Ukraine's sovereignty and to back these separatists, and these separatists become more and more dangerous and now are risks not simply to the people inside of Ukraine, but the broader international community, then Russia will only further isolate itself from the international community, and the costs for Russia's behavior will only continue to increase. Now's the time for President Putin and Russia to pivot away from the strategy that they've been taking and get serious about trying to resolve hostilities within Ukraine in a way that respects Ukraine's sovereignty and respects the right of the Ukrainian people to make their own decisions about their own lives. And time is of the essence. Our friends and allies need to be able to recover those who were lost. That's the least we can do. That's the least that decency demands. Families deserve to be able to lay their loved ones to rest with dignity. The world deserves to know exactly what happened, and the people of Ukraine deserve to determine their own future.
The Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Netherlands, Frans Timmermans, gave an emotional speech from the United Nations Security Council meeting on Ukraine.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, and thank you for allowing me to speak here today. We're here to discuss a tragedy, the downing of a commercial airliner and the death of 298 innocent people. Men, women, and a staggering number of children lost their lives on their way to their holiday destinations, their homes, loved ones, or international obligations, such as an important HIV/AIDS conference in Australia. Since Thursday, I've been thinking how horrible must have been the final moments of their lives when they knew the plane was going down. Did they lock hands with their loved ones? Did they hold their children close to their hearts? Did they look each other in the eyes one final time in a wordless goodbye? We will never know. The demise of almost 200 of my compatriots has left a hole in the heart of the Dutch nation, has caused grief, anger, and despair. Grief for the loss of the loved ones, anger for the outrage of the downing of a civilian airplane, and despair after witnessing the excruciatingly slow process of securing the crash site and recovering the remains of the victims. It is fitting that this august council should take position on this matter, and I welcome the adoption of today's resolution of the United Nations Security Council, which was tabled by Australia and which the Netherlands co-sponsored. I thank the countries which expressed support for it, and I particularly want to thank Julie Bishop personally. Julie, we are in this together. Mr. President, for the Netherlands, one priority clearly stands out above all others. Bring the victims' remains home. It is a matter of human decency that remains should be treated with respect, and that recovering victims' remains should be done without any delay. The last couple of days we've received very disturbing reports of bodies being moved about and looted for their possessions. Just for 1 minute, not addressing you as representatives of your countries, but as husbands and wives, fathers and mothers, just imagine that you first get the news that your husband was killed, and then within 2 or 3 days, you see images of some thug removing a wedding band from their hands. Just imagine that this could be your spouse. To my dying day, I will not understand that it took so much time for the rescue workers to be allowed to do their difficult jobs, and that human remains should be used in a political game. If somebody here around the table talks about a political game, this is the political game that has been played with human remains, and it is despicable. I hope the world will not have to witness this again any time in the future. Images of children's toys being tossed around, luggage being opened, and passports, including passports of children, being shown on television. They are turning our grief and mourning into anger of a whole nation. We demand unimpeded access to the terrain. We demand respectful treatment of the crash site. We demand dignity for the victims and the multitudes who mourn their loss. I call on the international community, on this Security Council, on anyone with influence on the situation on the ground, allow us to bring the victims' remains home to their loved ones without any further delay. They deserve to be home. As we are currently taking the lead in the forensic examination of the human remains, I pledge that the Netherlands will do its utmost to make sure that all remains will be identified and returned home, wherever that home may be. We will work intensively with all countries and international organizations involved to make this happen as soon as possible. Mr. President, I also welcome the setting up of a proper investigation into the cause of the tragedy of MH17, as envisaged in today's resolution. The Netherlands has agreed to assume a leading role in such an investigation, in close cooperation with the relevant countries, the United Nations and ICAO. I am fully aware of the great responsibility we now take upon ourselves, and I give you my personal commitment that we will discharge this responsibility to the best of our abilities. As far as the safety and security of the site and the international investigators is concerned, I underline the responsibility the Security Council took upon itself with today's resolution to take additional measures if circumstances so require. Once the investigation ascertains who was responsible for the downing of the flight MH17, accountability and justice must be pursued and delivered. We owe it to the victims. We owe it to justice. We owe it to humanity. Please, provide full cooperation so that justice can be served. We will not rest until all facts are known and justice is served.
The Netherlands lost 193 citizens out of the 298 people on board, making it the country with the greatest loss on the unfortunate flight. Flight MH17 has sparked international anger, with the United Nations Security Council unanimously passing a UN resolution authorizing full access to the crash site. In an apparent uncooperative manner, Russian-backed separatists controlling the area of the crash has not allowed full access to the crash site.
Today, 282 bodies are in Torres in refrigerated train cars. To deal with the rumors, the train hasn't gone anywhere. It's still in the same place, in Torres. It hasn't gone to Kiev or Kharkiv. We will send the train under international control, under the control of OSCE observers, because we do not trust the opposing side. We guarantee them the highest possible security levels and the best work conditions possible.
Flight MH17 is another big blow to Malaysian airline, which recently has another plane, flight MH370, disappear on 8 March 2014, still with no trace and every hope of being found lost. From politics to economy, to business, technology, the totality of what makes man is all bring to you here on this Punch. We give you the information that you need, from business to economy, to politics, to technology. And that's all we do here on this Punch, from the beginning to the end. And that is why we are here. Keep watching this Punch from Ben Television. And today, I'll be your host. This is all we have for you on News Roundup this week. Thank you for being part of it. I am Tunde Alabi, and I look forward to seeing you again next week. Do have a very good time. Bye.